and welcome to episode 23 of All the Horrible Things.
23, boy, has time flown.
Yeah.
Or should I say, glided swiftly through the water. As this is our Shark Week edition. I was mistaken in the last cast thinking that Shark Week was earlier than it was. It actually doesn't begin until July 24th, so we're right on time with this one.
We're right on time.
We're going to be Shark Fever, baby, across the board. Do you have a favorite type of shark?
Well, I guess I'm probably a little ignorant to...
Me too.
I mean, I think most people would say great whites, but...
They're definitely the most formidable. Well,
yes.
The hammerhead, man. I always like the hammerheads.
Okay. From like the fruit gummies.
Maybe that's it. Yeah, with those gummies, it's so hard to tell what's what when they have these shapes, but that was very distinct. You could tell, all right, I'm chomping into the hammerhead right now. The other ones are just amorphous.
There was always a mystery flavor, and I think that was always like the white one. And it was like, that's great white. It turns out to be pineapple.
The white ones were always like a different texture too, weren't they? Like they weren't as jelly-y.
Yes, they weren't as gelatinous.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna dive into some of these horror shark flicks. Of course, everybody's aware that Jaws is the undisputed champion of shark films.
Yes.
And without it having done so well, we wouldn't have had the subsequent 9 that we are going to briefly wade into.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, do you remember the first time you saw Jaws?
I think the first time I saw Jaws was probably on basic cable, and it was...
Oh, wow. So it was edited potentially? You had commercials in it?
So I probably saw it like on, as a kid on cable, edited down for language and content. And I think I enjoyed it so much. I think then you seek it out. You're like, I want to see the actual...
Right.
I will say I'm not as familiar with the sequels. I think I've seen Jaws 2, and I've never seen the third one, which I believe is in 3D.
Oh, God. Yeah, I think I've seen 2 as well, but I don't remember anything about it other than not liking it. Asking why. But of course, I don't think Spielberg had anything to do with it other than maybe producer credit on it.
No.
But yeah, this is essentially what began the summer blockbuster was Jaws.
I was just about to say that.
Independent film course. This is one of the ones that we were shown. So for me, I remember being way too young to having seen it. I would say at the time, probably like 7 or 8 or 9 in that range. Sitting in the little green room, my dad just popped in that VHS. I think he actually rented it for me.
Nice.
Left me there alone to watch Jaws to traumatize me or something.
Yes,
because I remember it really did leave an impact in being freaked out at that age, rightfully so.
I'm not would venture to say
myself. Are you a land mammal? I'm a land mammal.
Yeah, I mean, I do love the water. I am definitely more of a lake person than the ocean, just because of naturally where we're located. But also, I think I'm just so confused as to what is friendly and what's not friendly. I'm like, jellyfish look adorable. Don't touch them. I would say that Jaws probably has impacted just about everyone who's watched it. Good or bad. Yeah. I mean, I think the most is probably scaring people. I know I have an unrational fear of sharks. I'm not ever, in contact with them. But yeah, because of Jaws and other movies, I'm definitely afraid of them.
I'm certainly afraid of them, but it's one of these weird things. It's like, I mean, granted, in some of these movies, you have these sharks with attitude. But really, they're just these eating machines or these dumb animals,
Yeah.
So in that sense, I can't be scared of their brain per se, but I'm more scared of like the wound I get and then bleed out as some of these characters do.
Absolutely. That's what gets me. Being bit. You're right, though.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that, because of the movies, they have a completely ridiculous bad rap. Like, I don't think they're as scary as what is in our head. I know people swim with sharks, caged and uncaged, and are fine. It's usually like a freak accident more people get hurt in vehicles than they do by sharks.
Yeah, that's why. I mean, granted, I'm not swimming in the ocean that often. But
no, me neither.
I don't know. Surfers, they're gutsy, man. They're gutsy. mean, between, like you said, the jellyfish and then, I don't know, the Kraken's out there as well.
Oh yeah. No, thank you. No, thank you. I mean, yes, to bring it full circle, I am also pretty comfortable on the land.
And Jaws just structurally is just so brilliant. That final act where we're just down to Hooper, Brody, and Quint on the boat together. Of course, this is one of the really resounding themes of shark movies throughout is this the bonding factor.
Oh yeah,
Whether it's sisters bonding, the couple per se, in like open water, or this rowing out there with three very different kinds of men. They're just kind of like tossed together in a spot there's nothing else. It's just them forced to deal with each other in such an intimate setting. And then, of course, where existential horrors are circling the boats of our common tropes, the circling. The sharks love to circle because with the exception of Deep Blue Sea, they can only go forward.
It's kind of like circling the wagons, like maybe that's where it comes from a Hollywood point of view. Is you're
tell me about that trope. What's circling the wagon? I'm not sure I've heard that.
Oh, like in cowboy movies, when they were being attacked by for ridiculous reasons by cowboys versus Indians, they circled the wagons, and then the enemy was in. So it kind of has that same visual aspect, and
yeah, I could see that.
It keeps things contained.
Would you rather contend with a big old shark, a great white, or a school of piranha?
Oh man, probably just a shark.
I think I'd rather deal with the shark too, because you got to go for the eyes. This is another one of the things that you're taught, even in real life. Go for the eyes.
The eyes, the nose. Apparently, if you punch them in the nose, they don't like that.
That one I don't believe as much.
Well, yeah, because when you're underwater, you can't get like a powerful punch going.
No, absolutely not. I could just see myself giving him my hand as a snack accidentally. It's slipping right into those.
Right into the mouth.
So I think I'll go for the eyes first.
Yeah.
Unless I get so good as I'm Tom Jane levels of shark wrangling.
Oh man.
I can bop it to the side and then grab that fin and go for a ride.
No fear. That man has no fear in that movie.
Happening. He doesn't. I love me some Tom Jane.
Same. Underrated.
Yeah, he definitely is. He's so good at these genre movies, though. But we'll get to him. What I think is interesting is 1974 is when we get Jaws, and really these films that we're looking at then don't pop off again until almost around 2000. The first we're going to talk about, the oldest one we're going to talk about outside of Jaws, then is Deep Blue Sea. Mm-hmm. Let's dive into that puppy. Interesting. I was pointing out to you, this was released in 1999. I personally feel like it was pitched as let's make Jurassic Park with sharks.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have your confined setting, you got Samuel L. Jackson again being eaten in a notable way, and what's funny about it is we don't then get a sequel to this until 2018 is Deep Blue Sea 2, and then 2020 there's a third one. And you had an interesting idea of why you think it took almost 20 years to get out a second one of these flicks.
Yeah, I think it's completely comes down to practicality. I mean, in 1999, they're using probably designed like same thing that Spielberg did with Bruce, and like an actual functioning shark, as opposed to what they can do in Hollywood now with digital, like you just plop a shark in there, and I imagine it's a lot cheaper to do that than to actually build out all these sharks.
And certainly at the surface, I do think in Deep Blue Sea you had the mechanical sharks, more practical.
Yes, effects. At the surface, yeah. Underwater,
there is kind of some cheesy CGI in Deep Blue Sea, though.
Oh
it can be a struggle at times, but you kind of forgive it a little bit, because in Deep Blue Sea, what makes its sharks unique is that these are genetically engineered sharks. And I do like the premise of this. Ultimately, you have Saffron Burrows here, our mad scientist who's trying to cure Alzheimer's.
I believe so. Yeah.
So the idea is to enlarge these sharks so that they can access this protein in the brain and get more of it, more substantial amount that could then be used for these trials to cure Alzheimer's. I was on board with this premise. I thought it was pretty decent.
I agree. And much like Jurassic Park, you have a pretty fun ensemble here of just different types of characters really come together.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to jump straight to. Go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
I was going to say, weirdly, a talking parrot.
Oh, that's right.
I would consider part of the crew, LL Cool J's parrot. But I think that's what made it so much fun. Like, this is, unlike some of the other movies we're going to talk about, a Hollywood blockbuster.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. A lot of money was spilled into this one. I saw it at the theater. I remember really getting a kick out of it, finding it super entertaining for many reasons. And one of those is definitely the ensemble. And Michael Rappaport, of course, you got Samuel L. This is when Saffron was starting to take off. She was soon to be, I think the next year is when she got her part in Gladiator 2000. Yeah. She's great. And then you got a Skarsgård before he's a big shot, and he's one of the first to die. Yeah, you can't go wrong with this flick. Granted, these characters are stock as hell, and what I was emphasizing earlier to you is how it doesn't matter because we know the actors so well. I feel like in this instance that they bring all of their own characterizations from former projects into these roles where it's like you do have known them for a while. I mean, shoot, even Janice from The Sopranos is in this.
That's right.
Briefly.
Yeah. Before Sopranos.
Yeah. She gets just blown up. I think she's one of the few that doesn't actually get eaten by the sharks and just blown up by the structure.
That's the real question. Would you rather be eaten by a shark or blown up?
Blown up, 100%. Blow me up any day. Over serrations. But yeah, I think that's the most notable thing for me is the genetically engineered business, which I dig. Great ensemble. And then the most notorious death in any shark movie. You got Samuel L. when he's just given a rousing speech.
Given the pep talk.
Yes, you guys are about to give up. Well, you're not going to be giving up here because I was up in the Arctic and I almost froze to death, and everyone I was with, only 2 of us made it back, and we made it. So we're going to do the same. And then, of course, the shark pops up really hilariously.
Yeah, and it gets him like sideways, like it grabs him and throws him down.
It throws him down to the ground. His body just thwacked, and he's dragged in and chopped pretty good. I think another shark actually gets in on it. So we have like a Lost World-esque 2 sharks then ripping Samuel L. in half.
Oof.
Which,
what a way to go.
What I also liked is I felt was interesting and diverse for the time is that Samuel L.'s the money man, right? So you have a role that certainly wasn't in Jurassic Park. He was our worker. In this one, he's the guy who's going to determine whether or not this continues, these experiments. His money is getting plopped into it. And it's not a role you normally see from Samuel L. So I definitely enjoyed that.
Yeah, I mean,
what?
No, I was going to say, I think this movie, if for nothing else, I mean, you're talking about the plot. There are just so many fun deaths. So, I mean, there are like you got your whole cast, but I think there's like over 13 kills in this movie, counting the parrot.
Yes, the poor parrot. Was it a her parrot? I don't know.
I think so.
The bond between the parrot and Samuel L. Or not Samuel L. LL Cool J. So many L's.
Yeah, a lot of L's.
It was great. When LL Cool J gets caught not caught in it, but he hides in the oven, and then he has to like tear through the top of the oven to get the second part. And he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna die in my own oven." I thought it was great. Like LL's sub story was a lot of fun. And the effects with just it all flooding in there, and then sharks kind of only having this really shallow water to, traverse the structure. I thought was effective. It's a movie I will watch multiple times again compared to a lot of these shark flicks.
Oh,
it's
agreed.
just such a fun romp. It's such a fun romp, mindless entertainment to the nth degree.
You could almost compare it to you compared it to Jurassic Park. You could almost compare it to Alien.
Yeah.
Aliens. Yeah.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
You're subbing out the spaceship for a underwater laboratory.
Underground or underwater laboratory.
Underwater lab.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
But let's jump ahead then a few years. So we go from 1999 with a big money flick, big blockbuster Deep Blue Sea, and then you have the most independent of them all on the list, and that's 2003's Open Water. Did you see this one in the theater?
I did. I did see this in the theater. And I think it was mostly because of how independent it felt. And I think people were talking about it a lot. You know, there was a pretty good marketing plan around it, you know, talking about how it was based off of a true story. But
that's what makes it super scary.
Yeah. And you know, a lot of movies were doing that after the success of Blair Witch, which was completely not based off of a real story. But the early 2000s, they were trying to like, let's remarket this with a story. The thing about this movie, though, it may be the most independent and maybe doesn't hold up as well because of the camera work and the type of video that was around then. We've come a long way with video.
We have.
Yeah. And I think I
think, as we were mentioning before, like which of these have the best production value, and it certainly has the worst production value. But I think it almost works because it feels like you're watching it on an old VHS recorder, you know,
like a found really footage, gritty, you know,
found footage, certainly. But it works in the context of this. I was noting to you, I really got scared with the characters once they were abandoned in the water, but I struggled with them on land. I felt like they were better performers in the water than when they were this couple who hasn't had enough time together, quality time, and that's essentially the premise for them going on this scuba diving. There's so much scuba diving in these shark movies. That's why when they don't do that scuba angle, I really appreciate it. As some very few other ones don't deal with the scuba diving. But what I also love about this movie is it really is, there's no happy ending. They both die.
No.
And she doesn't, she dies in like even a sadder way than getting eaten by a shark. She kind of just gives up and lets herself drown.
Yeah. Abandons hope.
Yes. Total hopelessness in this movie. And for that, I did appreciate it. But like you said with Blair Witch, that one ends, everyone's dead in that too. I guess with the found footage, that's what tends to happen because otherwise.
and refresh my memory because a lot of these blur together. The reason they're left there is because of like a miscount. Are they miscounted?
Yes. This is actually one of my favorite parts of the flick because it's actually almost comedic the way that it's done. They have this really like stereotypical New York guy who's out there by himself when everyone else is like in couples. And he's like, oh, shoot, I forgot my my mask. Anybody got an extra mask? And like the people running the operation are like, no, guy, we don't have it. You can't go in. I'm sorry. So he's like, he outs for a bit. But then you got this other couple who kind of like, the girl isn't enjoying herself. So they get out right quick. And then this guy's all like, well, can I use your mask then?
You ain't going to use your mask.
Reluctant to do it. And then when she finally says, okay, you can use my mask, he's going to jump in there himself. But then the people in charge are like, no, you need a partner. You cannot go alone.
You need a swimming buddy.
You need a swimming buddy. So the guy that was with the girl who's been willing to give up her mask is like, I don't want to go back in either. I don't want to go with this guy. Come on, guy, you gotta get in there with me.
Yeah,
he's such an over the top character in this,
just ruining everyone's vacation.
Exactly. So then what happens is because he was doing a count at the beginning, they double counted this couple, right? So then when on the boat, it seemed like there was an additional two, the final two, but of course that left our two main characters, Daniel and Susan, left out there. What's interesting though is at the end, they then see, oh, whose clothes are these?
Right.
On the boat hours and hours later, and then realize that they've left them out there.
Yeah, what starts off as a really fun, original, like set into action moment where they just miscounted ends up to be just neglect.
Yes.
Like, oh shoot,
I hope they got sued.
Yeah.
It is funny though how they just did the counting, kind of like to make it clear what happened to the audience. You actually see the person writing down the numbers and tallying up who's there. It was kind of weird. I don't know. Super low budget business going on there. But,
and I was mentioning that, because this had a really good, jumping off point. That Open Water 2, which we're not necessarily talking about, but I wanted to mention that they have also a really great way of trapping our main characters in the water. They're a group of friends on a boat, and they're all jumping off of the boat, but someone forgets to put the ladder down. So now you cannot climb back up into this boat, and now they're just stuck.
Wow.
It was a really creative way of and also just
seen it.
Simple.
And it's worth seeing, you're saying.
Well, if you're a fan of this and you liked this, then and if you're a fan of shark movies, I would say it's definitely worth watching.
So the boat's there the whole time, is what you're saying? They just can't get on it?
Correct.
Wow.
Which is infuriating and maddening, So they try like different things to get into the boat and like, simple plot, but effective.
So if it's a group of dudes, I'm taking it, unlike Open Water, there's not gratuitous boobs at the beginning, like in this one. For some reason, we had to watch them boning in the hotel before they go out on their scuba diving the next
Sex sells.
Yes, indeed. It just seemed strange.
Unnecessary. It was
really
unnecessary.
Didn't need to be there.
No.
Yeah. Any Flavin, let's move ahead then to, wow. Okay, so we go from 1999, 2003, and then we have a dearth of shark movies until 2010 when we have The Reef, which I know you haven't caught The Reef yet.
I haven't seen it.
And
no,
I'm
I've heard good
surprised
things.
it's as far back as 2010 because it's a strong flick. It's an Australian shark movie, but this is one of the few that does not have the scuba diving premise that pushes it into it. Instead, you have this character who makes their living out of moving boats from one part of the world to another for, wealthy people who can afford that.
Sounds like a fun job.
When he gets this opportunity to take it from Australia to somewhere else, I can't remember the second location, he's then invites his friends to come on the boat with him. Of course, we got some X's that happen up on the boat together, so you got this tension between the guy and the girl, and then, of course, they end up in the water later. When this is another interesting part that's unlike other shark movies, the boat hits reef, so it's kind of like a Titanic situation where the boat gets capsized because of some sharp reef, and then they are like forced on top of it until they're like, oh crap, we gotta just try to make a swim for it. And I'm pretty sure 12 miles that way we'll get to some land. So of the 5 people, 4 decide to actually go swimming, and then there's this guy Warren. He's like, I'm just gonna stay on top of the boat, and that's all we get of him. That's it. They leave the boat. Warren's never found, because apparently this is also based on a true story. Warren is never found.
Wow.
But then you got the 4, and they're dealing with, of course, their own interpersonal dynamics with the shark circling. And part of it is they come across this big old giant turtle whose head has been chopped off. It was a nice reveal moment. Oh, look, turtle without a head. But yeah, the characters are good. The acting is really good. To me, it was Open Water with a higher budget. You know what I mean? It had that same sort of intensity. Yeah. But again, we are at the surface of the water, unlike some of the ones we'll talk about later, which it's not necessarily original in that sense. But I felt like the way that they got into the water, and these are people that don't want to look at sharks, play with sharks, look at the fish. They're not there for that. They're just out on the ocean to enjoy themselves. And then they're tossed into the circumstances because of the boat capsizing. So I suggest the Australian flick, The Reef. I think it's worthwhile and seems newer than 2010 when you look at it production-wise.
Wow, that's great. Which I think takes us to our next movie, which is also an Australian movie from 2012 called Bait.
That's right. And this is one I haven't caught. I'm curious to hear about it.
This movie, I think it struggles with some of the production value as far as like in the beginning of the movie, it kind of feels a bit like a Sharknado movie just because they tried to pull off some big special effects. It starts off with this lifeguard losing his friend, who's also a lifeguard, eaten by a shark. He was engaged. He was supposed to get married soon and go to, I believe, Thailand with his fiance. he's a mess after having lost his best friend and wasn't able to rescue him. His fiance goes off to Thailand, leaves him. Then we jump ahead, I think a year, and he's now working in a grocery store. Like he is, yeah, kind of like
moving up in the world from lifeguard to
lifeguard to stalker, and you can just kind of tell his character doesn't really care about too much anymore, which is kind of a nice way or an easy way to set up, building him back up. And so this is about a tsunami hitting this coastal town of Australia and brings in all these sharks. We're set up with our main character in the grocery store. His fiance's back. She's also in the grocery store now. And this movie really is more of an ensemble piece because like it's all of like these setting up events. There's Julian McMahon, who you might know from Nip Tuck or the first Fantastic Four. He's being forced to rob the place. So it's getting all these people into the same location. Kind of feels like The Mist in that sense. It also takes place in the grocery store. Now, I mentioned the production value. This is what it was really designed for. Is that they have a really elaborate grocery store set filled practically with water. They're all now forced to stand on top of the shelves. And from there on out, I thought they did a really good job of pulling off a shark movie in a grocery store.
Yeah,
contained when you think it's going to be more. It kind of feels like Crawl as well. The storm coming in, bringing in the sea life, and some of the characters are a little bit over the top, and the performances are big. But overall, it was enjoyable. The only thing I didn't like about it was I had to watch it on Tubi, so those commercials. We've talked about that before. But
yes, that's a struggle sometimes.
But overall, like a fun. I love when things take place, when stories take place in location. But this wasn't just a house or anything. They filled this set with water. It was well produced in that sense.
Well, it sounds like one you definitely got to catch. And what's interesting is it does sound like you said with Crawl. There's in a lot of these movies dealing with themes of like environmentalism and ultimately how man thinks he has dominion over the world and can do whatever the hell he wants with it. But then, we're not necessarily at the top of the food chain
right.
If, we're thrown into aquatic scenarios.
Yeah, different circumstances.
So I definitely appreciate that. I mean, it brings us back to the Jaws of the mayor's like, nope, we're keeping the beaches open. We got to make that money, honey.
Yeah.
I do appreciate that shark flicks can have that deeper quality in them. But yeah, it does sound like The Mist with sharks, which I'm on board for.
Yeah.
Rewatch The Mist because it's been at the top of the charts on Netflix for like a month now.
Is that right?
Which is awesome. Yeah.
I mean, I get it. I mean, it's a great movie.
It is, and I think it's one of those flicks that people missed in the theater, kind of like didn't hit, and now it's hit.
The Mist.
Yeah, that's so good. No sharks in that one though, sadly.
No, sadly.
Let's bump ahead then to 2016's The Shallows, starring the one and only Blake Lively.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I've seen her in anything else. I know she's married to Ryan Reynolds. Where do you stand on Blake Lively? Because it's really the Blake Lively show. She's the only one in this for the most part.
I am a fan. I have nothing negative to say. I too don't remember.
I thought she was decent. I thought she was pretty darn good.
I will say that this movie has been on like my watch list for a long time because I've heard, positive stuff about it. So I just watched this last week for the first time and really enjoyed it.
Yes, it's fun. It's like I said, I saw it in the theater all by myself, and I think it was like at a point where I was like just stuck and wanted to like venture out, go on a vacation, couldn't for whatever reason or another. And it did sweep me away. I felt like production wise, I really enjoyed what it did with its setting. And I felt like even though she's kind of like stuck in this one little remote beach, in that sense, it's kind of like old. It's just this one beach that she's dropped off in. And like these other movies, in this case, she has her mother has just passed away from cancer. And her mother was a big surfer too. And this was the beach in which her mother last what do you call it, surfed when she was pregnant with her. So talk about like a badass woman who's pregnant and still surfing and such. But she's trying to essentially recover. She's trying to get past that, not past it, but through the pain of losing.
She's dealing with it. She's coping. This is how she's coping with it. And
Which
I was just going to say, I really enjoyed just even that short truck ride that's showing you how hard it is to get to this beach, how it really set this like isolation up nicely.
Yes, hidden beaches. I'm not going to any hidden beaches. Always
like always
trouble on a hidden beach.
Yeah,
they should stay hidden.
They really should.
Gonna, like,
I think that's the message there.
100 within a night, or you're going to get eaten by a shark.
Yeah.
What's the message?
Stay out.
Stay away from hidden beaches.
Stay away.
Land that should not be touched by man. Land of water.
There's some fun things that set up this story too. Like I really enjoyed them taking the time to show you that she's not just some girl who wants to surf.
Right.
You could tell that even though she's from Texas, Galveston, I think, which is a coastal town, they surf there. They surf in Texas. And I thought those two local characters were very funny and welcoming, which, could have gone the other way. They could have been like, how did you get here? Stay off of our private beach. These are our waves, kind of like the surfers in Point Break.
Or even like, Harvey Weinstein-y, come to our beach. But they weren't. They were chill.
Yeah, they seemed like legit, just we're here to surf. We don't care. And then they end up having like a fun friendship, even though they're just complete strangers, not even all speaking the same language. It was it was a nice character setup, and those guys were with the GoPro footage too was a really unique way they slipped in some found footage into there.
Yes, that was a nice touch, and it gave her the opportunity to kind of like leave her own last message for her family. And like you said, you have even these smaller characters that are well written and kind of like unassuming. And even her character is pretty rich in that she's a medical student. She's debating whether or not she even wants to continue with medical school after her mom died. But it sets up the opportunity when she is chomped by the shark to give herself some stitches and stuff while she's stranded on the rock.
Sutures with the jewelry, which is I haven't seen that before.
All right, that was kind of cool. But another one of our common tropes is flares, and I remember you asking questions about the flare use in this one.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen flares, established in this genre or subgenre from Jaws. And I questioned whether or not, and I have to believe that it's real and not just convenient storytelling, that the buoy she ends up on has this box that's also nice touch, kind of corroded over from the salt water. So it took her some time to get into it, and there's a flare gun in there, and I like that she dropped the flare gun ammunition or flares, if you will, into the water, and the whole swinging motion of the ocean that she's on was cool. Like I thought that was, again, if it's not real, I wasn't like bothered by it. I thought it was fun, like way to slip in a flare gun. And I will say this though, as far as shark movie tropes, I don't know if flares will travel underwater like a missile.
Yeah.
We're always using it against the sharks, and people have really great accuracy. Like they're very accurate with their aims, and they're sometimes hitting sharks in the eyes with these flares or in their mouth. That part is a little bit of a jump, but I didn't mind.
The physics underwater is questionable.
Yeah.
What didn't you mind?
Well, I don't mind necessarily. Like it's not like it took me out of it. I'm like, we're already watching somebody trying to fight off a shark. Like, how realistic is that to begin with? We're in their territory. There's no way you're fighting it. But
that's something we actually mentioned before the cast, is the nature of what you're told, the tropes of fighting back when you do deal with a shark attack. You're supposed to go for the eyes, and in a lot of these movies they do go for the eyes. But then there's the other one, what the bop in the nose. We were questioning whether or not that's really a viable option.
Is that real?
I just feel like if you're punching him in the nose, it's very easy to slip down and put your hand in that shark's mouth, and then you're just like giving him a snack from your body,
right?
Versus actually deterring him. You're like alluring. Oh, this is what you taste like. But I will say, for The Shallows to be pretty much a one-man show, she pulls it off. I didn't mind following her throughout it. It didn't feel long when that can happen when you're just following one person.
They did a great job. You weren't too concerned about, I mean, we knew that there's a time limit on this, right? She's bleeding. There's a shark circling her. But I don't know if they actually say how long she was out there. You know, like they don't do that day 2, day 3 type of situation. And again, I didn't mind. I don't
mind that either, honestly, because that can rip you out of a movie. It's like, we're there with her, seeing what's going on. Then, of course, another really cool aspect of it is she's very conscious of the tides too, which forces her to move, which is something that's not really used in a lot of these. And I definitely
also the dead whale that she's on was kind of a cool touch too. The only thing that was super weird was this interaction with the drunk guy on the beach.
Yeah, thankfully he steals her stuff later.
Yeah,
and gets eaten by the shark. So.
I guess the one thing I would have liked to have known, and I again, this is just nitpicky, because I think it's implied that there's some sort of fishing town or something nearby. The guy who dropped her off had to have lived somewhere. He establishes that he doesn't want to take money for the ride. It's like he was already headed that way. There's a drunk man. So where did he come from? That's what I'm getting at. I would have liked to have known if, like, oh yeah, there's just a town up the coast or whatever. Because this guy,
like, where is he getting the booze if it's that far from civilization?
And passing out, like, so he was on his way home too. I would hope to think, but yeah, he was a real.
That is kind of a hole. That's interesting.
Yeah, and again, it didn't take me out of the story. I think you can use your imagination, kind of create your own story there. But he was the worst. He was a terrible person. Not for one, just drinking entire bottle of whatever that was. It was clear. It looked like tequila, whatever. He knows that she's out there, and the tough communication they're already having, that she's yelling, he can hear her in his state of mind as well, chooses not to help her and steals her phone. The critic in me, the critic was thinking, he just took that phone and he put it in his pocket and then he decides to go into the water. Like, you just destroyed the phone you stole. But yeah, he just plans to steal her stuff. And then he plans to steal her broken surfboard. And that's what inevitably gets him killed.
Good riddance. But I mean, it did break it up pretty good. I think it needed him.
We did. We definitely did.
It definitely broke it up. Almost was like, a little bit of a relief when it's a very tense movie.
And it was comical, and it shouldn't have been, but it was comical that you've got this just drunk guy who is just not there to help.
The only thing left I want to say about The Shallows is the end. And of course she does survive. But then a year later, she goes surfing again. I like, I guess, the idea of she's such a strong person that she can get past these things and can. But I don't know. If I've been bitten by a shark, I'm done with the water.
Yeah, I'm never going back in the ocean again.
I think you're smarter for like maybe finding a new hobby, crocheting, perhaps something a little safer. Than swimming with sharks.
Yeah. But before that, though, the last thing I'll say about the movie was that it's a little kind of confusing as to how she ends up. Spoiler alert, by the way, how she kills the shark with that impaling. Like, do you remember? Like, she's on the buoy, and then there's the chain, and it like pulls the shark down, and then I don't know. I was a little confused as to. Again, it didn't really bother me, but it was kind of a confusing sequence.
Yeah, I feel like that could have been clearer too. And actually, the last one the newest one, the Requiem, which will be the last one, that's kind of a similar instance with how
it does with
takes out the shark.
Yeah,
or Alicia Silverstone. But before we jump ahead to 2022, I want to talk about 47 Meters Down, which came out the year following The Shallows, 2017. and it has the good old Mandy Moore. Who, as we were talking about it, I didn't realize she was like relevant. I guess she is on This Is Us and stuff. That's not a show I'm watching. But she was good. I thought she was a really well cast for this 47 meters down. Unfortunately, we do have the premise of scuba diving here again.
Yeah.
But I like how it's set up. We have sisters on vacation, trying to once again get their bond on. And Mandy Moore's character has just been like dumped. She is like in a pathetic state because all she's doing is thinking about that man. So they come across these really kind of like two nice guys from the area that they have a good enough time with that they're willing to then go out with these strangers on day 2 into the ocean with Matthew Modine. Dr. Brenner is in charge of this cage and the boat in which they drop that cage into the ocean. And you would think, again, what I did like, similar to what goes on in the Shallows, is you don't have these creepy dudes. You know, these are like genuinely nice guys that do just want to show them a good time and get them a cage shark experience on the cheap. I think it was only $100 each, right? Which seems really cheap to get to swim with sharks.
Feasible.
But then they see the cage, and this is a rusty old biscuit. I tell you what, that thing was, I wouldn't have
problematic.
It was problematic. So ultimately, the guys go first, have a good old time, and Mandy Moore really doesn't want to do it, but her sister pressures her into doing it and getting in the water. Needless to say, the winch, I feel like I've heard that word winch now, watching all these shark movies so much. The winch breaks, and then the cage just drops to the bottom. Yeah. I watched this at night, and I got to be honest with you. Of all of these films, this one is the scariest for me. I don't know what it is other than it felt so claustrophobic. I mean, they're almost obscured so much with these big masks and stuff. It's hard to even see some of the facial cues. But I was horrified by this one to the point that I actually watched it in 3 parts. I got through about an hour of it, and I was like, you know what? I got to stop. This is going to give me nightmares. I can't say that for any of the other ones. This, to me, was by far the scariest flick because not only do you got the shark problem, but they got the air issue in their
oxygen
tanks that's running out. And then they think it's one point that even though Matthew Modine has been claiming to try and help them for all this time, there's a point in which they think he's abandoned them. And that, I don't know, just these really kind of like simple things. And it scared me. I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't expecting it at all. I highly recommend it. And as I told you, I didn't realize 47 meters down uncaged wasn't the first. I didn't realize this was. It's not a prequel in a sense that it has any of the same characters. It just has similar premise. And of course, sisterhood plays a thing. This is actual sisters.
Common theme.
47 meters down, we're dealing with stepsisters. So that is a big part of it. But yeah, you haven't seen this one for a while. What do you remember the most about it?
The oxygen tank that seemed the scariest to me, is that they actually put like this practical time limit on this. And you know, we talked about the cliche of it being scuba diving, but I liked that you needed to have the scuba diving effect for the cage. The movie was really about this cage that they're. You're right. It is cage diving,
so I guess in that sense, it's not. Yeah, quite scuba diving.
They took it a little bit further, right? But essentially, this is like other shark movies. I think this one does a really good job of making it more like a slasher film. You know, the cage almost being your like cabin in the woods, you know? And I think the other thing that maybe why it's so scary is it doesn't seem all that unrealistic. Like I don't want to swim with sharks, but a lot of people do. Mm-hmm. And I've seen people go in cages. It seems realistic, you know?
It did. This in open water, I feel like were the most realistic, and that certainly adds to the scare factor. But another thing, I love you're comparing it to like the cabin in the woods. This is
this is a slasher film. Yeah,
it is. I think that's very accurate. But when it comes to endings, I felt like this ending surprised the heck out of me because I didn't see it coming. And usually something like that, the twist that they give us here. Matthew Modine mentions at one point because he sends down additional air tanks.
Right.
You gotta put them on right, otherwise you can get too much. Was it iron? Too much nitrogen in your blood, and that will make you start kind of like hallucinating. So at the end there, we have this, I don't know, 10 to 15 minute sequence of her sister coming back, even though she thought her sister had died, but she's back. And they have this amazing scene where they're going to swim to the top, and they got the flares to ward off the circling sharks. And she, of course, drops one of the flares, another one of her trope. But they get to the surface, even though they're chewed up. They both finally do get to the boat. But then, of course, we have it cut back to her still in the cage, laughing hysterically because she is hallucinating. So her sister's been dead. She did die. And it was just so tragic to see her cracking up. Thankfully, you do got what is the Coast Guard that they brought out there? That do end up saving Mandy Moore. But at this point, she's crackers. You know what I mean? She's completely cracked up. But I just thought it was just additional element that made it such a memorable ending to me.
Yeah, the hysteria, absolutely. Another good example of why I don't want to go swimming with sharks is this movie.
Pass on that.
Before
we jump to the sequel, there's one in between here, and I did see this in the theater, but it's The Meg. 2018's The Meg with Jason Statham.
Yes.
And I like Jason Statham a little bit, but I'm not a Fast and the Furious guy, and I feel like anyone who's gotten into that world kind of loses a little bit of a notch on my respectometer. So I kind of went into it like, this guy is just a money grabber sort of actor more than anything, and that's kind of what I felt here. The Meg is a megalodon, which is an ancient shark that doesn't exist anymore, right?
Right.
And there's not just one, there's multiple megalodons.
This movie, like Deep Blue Sea, tried to put together like a fun ensemble. And like you've got Rainn Wilson in there. And you've got like when you need to bring in like comic relief for a shark movie, you can't really take it seriously. And that's not even the fact that we're talking about like an ancient creature here. You know, you want to get past that to try and enjoy the movie, but this movie's just ridiculous. It
sucked. I'm sorry. There's so much money
like
dropped in this one.
Yeah, it's kind of like how Snakes on a Plane. You know, it's like it's forced. Yeah, it's forced scenarios. I mean, Jason Statham, who actually in real life was an Olympic diver. I mean, the guy.
Whoa.
Yeah. Before he started his acting career, I think he was first a diver for England. Then I had heard he'd done some male modeling, and somewhere along the way, he got into performing in like with Guy Ritchie films. I kind of have a feeling like he was looking for a water movie to do his whole career, and he just picked the wrong one. Because he could have been like a Thomas Jane in Deep Blue Sea in this movie, but it's just way over the top, you know.
Yeah, and even I will say in Deep Blue Sea there is comedic moments, and certainly Michael Rappaport is our most comedic character. But they're just likable. Even Rainn Wilson, I just didn't really like anyone. I didn't care about him. I wasn't invested. And I saw it in the theater with my mom, and she, of course, was like, "Why did you just waste an hour and a half of my life?"
Well,
with this one, it was at a time when there was like jack shit in the theaters, though.
There's
like,
nothing out.
Resorted to seeing the Meg.
Probably
like an August release.
Oh yeah, this was definitely like supposed to be a summer blockbuster. I don't know the numbers. I'm sure it did fine, but certainly not enough to make a sequel, right? I saw this movie on an airplane because I knew I was never going to watch it like in the theater. Or like I had no like plans of renting it at home. I know that this movie was probably made to be seen on a big screen, but I kind of threw that out the window when I was, and I don't love watching new movies on an airplane. I'll try to watch something like I've seen before.
Especially movies over when you're flying over. Were you flying over water? Because I would not.
No. I think I was coming back from like a LA work trip or something, but it was like the perfect like 2.5 hours or something like that. Like all right, I'll watch this, and
There's 178 million on the budget, and it earned 530. So, like 300 million. I mean, for something like that, when you're dropping 200, it's just making a little bit comparatively. I don't know. It definitely doesn't deserve a sequel.
Yeah, and I think, and I've only seen it the one time. I think there are moments where it tried to pull stuff from Deep Blue Sea. Like, isn't there like an underwater lab?
Facility.
And I think Jason Statham's ex-wife is on there, and that's why he agreed to like come help them. Like,
right.
There's other actors in this movie that I like too. Like Cliff Curtis is a really great
he
actor.
is good.
I love that guy. And
was he Fear the Walking Dead?
Yep.
He's done so much. Dark Horse.
Yep.
Whale Rider, I think, is really where he impressed me the most. Yeah, he is good. Yeah, it's like I think you hit it on the nose, and they tried to put together an ensemble that would make up for so many script flaws, and it just did not.
Yeah,
it didn't work.
I mean, the idea is cool, but at the end of the day, when even you and I talked about how a pack or school of piranha is scarier than a regular shark, a giant shark isn't necessarily like the scariest thing.
Nah, definitely not. Didn't do it for me. I mean, yeah, because megalodons don't exist anymore. It's just like, you got to sell me on that. Did it with Godzilla better than a megalodon. It's or not even a real creature from the past.
Oh yeah, or I
should have been able to do it effectively.
Yes, like the water monsters, creatures in Jurassic Park are scarier than you know, and they're only on screen for a little bit of time. Yeah,
completely agree. So that's a big old thumbs down on the Meg.
Yes.
But let's jump back now to the 47 meters down uncaged verse, where I thought, like you this movie surprised you. It surprised me. I don't think it holds a candle to the first one.
No.
But I thought it was fun. It was definitely worth a view. And you got blind sharks.
Yeah, which creatively removes that whole theory about poking a shark in its eye.
That's true. That is true.
Now, I've read a couple gripes from like reviews and critics and stuff, and one person just said, were they even 47 meters down? Like, they never talk about the fact that like it was just about, like cave diving, which was super interesting, by the way.
Right. That was cool. That's really a good point. It's like, I guess they just were running with the steam that the first one had, because the first one made such a big point of the cage landing at 47 meters down, and you could see on the actual, I don't know, gauge of how deep you are, they kept focusing on where they were. But this one, you have no clue. There's an underground ancient Mayan, I think it was.
Mayan or Inca. I think it was Mayan. The other funny thing that someone pointed out is like there's a scene when they first get into the cage, and this beautiful fish that you would never see like anywhere else turns to them and screams at them. Do you remember that?
I do.
It screams, and you're like, wait a minute, fish don't have lungs. They can't do that. So it was an effective jump scare type of a moment, but completely like, wait, what?
Yeah,
fish
I'm trying to see. Remember a cave fish? They encounter a cave fish.
Yeah, a cave fish.
That's what gets them to accidentally knock over the column under there, which kind of traps
made me so angry. I know it was just to like, dig up or like, what is the term we're looking for? Get basically all the sand up and like cloud their vision. Right. But it made me so angry. Somebody who appreciates like history and stuff, like they probably just destroyed a ton of stuff.
Ancient.
Oh man. But you know what? One of my biggest flaws with this movie was like some musical choices. There was some songs in this, like when they're first like going out to like the cave diving place, the song they chose took me out of it. It felt like something you'd hear on the Karate Kid soundtrack or something.
Oh no. Yeah, but, I just love the performers. I mean, I didn't take Mandy Moore too seriously a decade or two ago, but she did the job in 47 meter down. I can't say there was anyone that I really give that same credit to. a second.
Now, we have two actors in 47 Meters Down Uncaged that are daughters of other actors. Sylvester Stallone's daughter
good actors.
is in it. And
I guess good is relative, but
the other, right. The other daughter, the main character, is Jamie Foxx's daughter.
Okay. All right. I didn't know that. That's interesting.
So this seemed kind of like a movie that was like calling in a favor to get my daughter in a movie. They're like, well, we got this shark movie that can be whatever. Just get him out of the house. It's like,
and then of course their dad in the movie is John Corbett.
John Corbett is the dad in this. Yes.
Fans of rom-coms would know.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. There was, you know what? Again, I was surprised. It was very entertaining. I was telling you, I liked the way that they kind of brought the story back around when they were supposed to be going out like on a shark glass bottom shark tour, whatever. And when they finally make it out of the cave, there's that same ship they're supposed to be on, or boat,
right? And
they're throwing chum into the water. And I thought that was just a really fun, like, oh my God, now they're dealing with different sharks.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah, you gotta love the chum. Fun. I mean, that's another thing that popped up in that first one. They used the chum, and the girls were like, "Is this legal?
Yeah.
Do you want to see sharks or not?"
Right.
Yeah. So it's worth a look. Both of them.
The
first one's superior, but the second one does bring a new sort of vibe.
Yeah,
that's sort. Let's talk about our last one, the newest of on our list. Unless did you have something else to mention?
No. Let's talk about 2022's The Requin. Is that how you pronounce it?
The Requin. Yes,
it's
the French word for shark, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay. You know what? I remember reading about this one before it came out, like in the upcoming horrors being released in 22, and being fairly excited about it. The premise itself seemed decent, but the execution was not great.
I did not like this movie.
But Alicia Silverstone can do no wrong. I mean, she's trying to make a comeback, right?
Yeah.
She definitely is.
There was a couple performance moments where I'm like, it's an interesting take they chose. But her performance was not the reason I did not like this movie.
Okay.
I felt that this movie was sort of Frankenstein monstered together with some stock footage of sharks.
Okay.
Some bad just effects. I don't know.
It did seem like it was on a set a lot of the time. You could tell it was on a set, not at the sea.
And I liked the idea in theory that they were on one of those houses on stilts. Like that was a fun idea.
Yeah, but that was cool. That's what got me into it initially, or not into the movie, but getting me to want to see it was the idea of their actual little hut during a storm getting pulled out to the sea, and then they're floating like on a house at sea. You know, that was new.
And
visually.
the things I guess I didn't like, the more I'm thinking about it, are maybe more character things. Like I thought that the relationship, sure, they set it up to be, they're trying to work through some things after having lost a baby, but they make the guy, the husband, they try to make him more of like the man who should know more about stuff, and I'm going to tell us what to do, save the day. And then he goes along with starting that fire on the boat and then on their house. I was so annoyed. I'm like, why? You want to get some smoke? We know where this is going. We saw it a mile away that you're going to catch this whole thing on fire. And yet they did it anyway. And the way they did it with the light refracting through the plastic bottle really bothered me. Like, I don't know if it's possible. Fine. But I don't know.
Yeah, I think you put it a good way in saying that, as Frank said. It was ham-handedly put together.
Yeah.
A very predictable flick. I didn't like the husband. It was fun just watching Alicia Silverstone to a degree because you don't see her much. But I'm going to give the movie, granted, it was cool when the husband dies too. All on board with that. He needed to go.
His legs were,
and he goes in kind of a, painful, drawn out way.
Mm-hmm.
But after she's kind of about to give up too, then she's saved when she's on a little piece of land by a fisherman in what is known as a coracle. It's like this big old basket boat.
Yeah, I was just picturing a big old barrel.
It's a man size. Yeah, I thought that was really cool, and that's a thing I had never seen before. It is literally like this big wicker basket sort of thing.
Yeah,
And the fisherman, he gets her, saves her, he stitches her up, and then he goes down. Why does he jump into the water himself?
Oh, he was trying to retrieve his fishing. If he's like kind of what I thought was happening is like, okay, if we're gonna go, I've got to check out my fish trap, like my nets, but it was like a bamboo cage, and and then the same thing happens to him. His legs or his arm.
He was such a sweet fisherman too. Like honestly, this was my favorite part of the movie. Was this whole coracle business?
Same
with
here.
The fisherman. And then, of course, they snuff him out too. And then it's her final battle with the shark, which, like the one you mentioned earlier, has a strange way of killing the shark involving an anchor going through its brain, I guess.
Yeah.
She rigged some sort of business to I don't know. It was a little, again, ham-handed, and it sounded like they just needed to figure out a way to
wrap it up. Like, how do we wrap this up?
Yes.
I mean, she could have killed it with that little propeller engine. They used that for a bit, and I did think that one scene I'm like, that looks kind of cool. Was the shark had all those cuts on him from the propeller that she was.
That was cool when she tore up the face of the shark with the propeller in the boat. That was new. But as a whole, it did need to be made. This movie was, I mean, granted, I liked the undertone, the metaphor of her dealing with the trauma of losing the child. I felt like that was a new angle at least. But it wasn't enough to flesh out the 90 minutes. Had a $8.5 million budget, but I don't see any info on how much it actually made.
No. I mean, there's a scene.
At the worst time. It was released at the end of January of this past year.
Oh, yeah.
It's not a good time to release.
They should have released it around Shark Week.
Yes, like the timeliness of this episode. But they didn't.
Wait. There is a scene though. This is my problem with this movie. Is there's a scene where the shark jumps up out of the water and it looks so bad. It's like that is the time we're seeing the shark, because it looks terrible. And also, for being a shark movie, it's more of a survival movie because the sharks really don't come in until almost like the end of the second act or third act.
That's true.
We're waiting for the sharks, and they finally show up. They didn't do a good job of, like, I get it, sharks are supposed to be, angry for no reason in these movies, but they didn't do a good job of establishing that. I mean, there was blood in the water, but they don't really show the shark then. Like, I feel like it was just sort of like mashed together.
Mm-hmm.
Like a first-time director, maybe.
I'm looking now at who it was distributed by, and it is the illustrious team that brought us the Power Rangers, Saban Films.
Oh, God.
So that's to be expected.
Stop making movies.
Cheaply done. But that does complete our list of shark flicks. But I do want to mention one other one that I watched over this past week that is set at sea, called Sea Fever. It's an Irish film, and it does have a shark in it. There is one moment where you see a shark eat a fish during some B-roll. But this is a really solid flick. And like you kind of mentioned Alien before, it's like Alien on a boat sort of situation, because you have this like ginormous kaiju of a sea anemone with these tentacles that attach to people or things. But the tentacles kind of look like I don't know, like a tremor face or something attached to the boat. Cool. And then they leak this pathogen onto the boat. So any like open wound that touches it, then you're infected and your eyes burst out of your fucking head. Oh, well, sorry for that, but
that's okay.
But the way that the people die in this, and then it's one of these things like who has the disease, who doesn't, because you could get infected too. It was intense, and just the sheer bleakness of the end is worth a look. So if you are a big fan of shark films, one would assume you also like other creature features set at sea. In Sea Fever, brand new on Hulu, and great. I mean, next to, it would make my top 3 on this whole list. I think I liked it maybe more than all but, of course, Jaws and 47 Meters Down and maybe Open Water. But then I'd maybe slide that one in there.
Huh.
It's worth
That's
a
good
look.
to know.
Sea Fever. Which it didn't make our Irish cast, so
that's too bad.
Popping in this one
next year.
Yes,
Well, that's exciting though, because you sort of get on a kick when we do like themes like this, and like now I want to watch like some better shark movies or just sea movies, and that's good.
Right.
We can promote that because it sounds like I had never heard that it was even coming out.
I hadn't heard of it, and I just saw a cool looking poster, and I was like, you know what? This is looking pretty good. And it was one good of those characters too, because it's essentially about this girl who's needs to get her. She's trying to get her marine biologist degree, so she's forced to go out at sea in a boat with like a fishing team for a long enough time to be able to report about it. And
see, that's a great little. I mean,
it's great. Good characterization. All the characters are great. They're really well done.
Yeah. I mean, it's not the hardest thing when you're doing a shark movie to go in the opposite direction than just scuba diving.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, just be a little bit more creative.
Get your originality on people. But on that note, I think we've done well for Shark Week.
I think so too. Do you want to just talk about like some things that like jumped out? Like, I know we kind of covered this throughout the episode, but like in your opinion, what was the scariest shark out of all these movies?
I mean, I don't think you compare anything to Bruce the Shark from Jaws. I think that's the number one.
Agreed.
Then maybe I guess the next one on the list would be, because in The Shallow, she's pretty much just dealing with the one. So these sharks, singular sharks with vendettas, that's the scariest in my books.
Yeah. And really quick, I think The Shallows did a really good job of, inciting, like, some of these shark attacks are just like for no reason. You could easily just in your head say that this shark was, she was too close to its feeding ground, like that's better than just like, hey, scuba divers, you're in the ocean, I'm going to eat you. Like, this makes more sense. We're talking about an animal here who's just feeding on a whale. And that to me makes it scarier than just the randomness.
Right. Totally agree. It made sense. It makes sense.
Yeah.
But is there any other on our little list here? Scariest death. Oh, yeah. I wanted to mention what I found to be the most horrific death, even though you don't get to know Skarsgård's character, Dr. Watkins or something in in Deep Blue Sea. What happens with him is he gets his arm chomped off or something. So he's then on a gurney being lifted out by a helicopter, and before they can like get it up there, because he's being reeled up, shark grabs him from the water, then pulls him down, but he's wearing like an oxygen mask, so he's still able to breathe underwater while he's in the teeth of the sharks, who then uses him as essentially a battering ram to crack open the hull or the big windshield underground. Just rams this poor man into it.
If I had to point out one thing that really, really bothered me about Deep Blue Sea is how long they just stand and stare at this giant pane of glass breaking. And of course they're like, all right, now let's leave. And then it opens.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a lot of cheese, but it's still a hoot. Scariest. And of course, the most notorious was Samuel L. in that movie.
Oh, yeah. Don't give a pep talk with your back to the opening.
Exactly. Yeah. Have a little, be a little humble, and you might survive shark encounters.
I think just overall, stay out of the ocean, everybody.
Yes, and stay alive.